All right, everyone, welcome to the Quarantine Cafe. I'm your host, Rafael Moreno, and today I am super excited to have a man that I have been looking forward to interviewing quite a long time. So, our guest today is Bill Wich, and the reason I wanted to interview this man for a while is because I'm a graduate of one of his programs, the one called OPP or Mega Point Program. And to start off, Bill, please tell us a little bit about your professional experience and what's led you up to this work.
Um, yeah, so professionally, I got my degree is in aerospace engineering. So I got a degree from Notre Dame in 71, a long time ago. And I worked for Ford and then Toyota in engineering and product management and stuff. And then in 1990, when I was 40 years old, I had like this, I call it my spiritual awakening. And my brother did a hypnosis process on me, and it created an awareness of me in me of other realms and other things going on below in a beyond anything I'd experienced in this life. And it fascinated the hell out of me, and I started studying what happened to me, what that was about. And it got me into men's work and then worked with the prisons. And I developed while I was doing all this, trying to find a way, not only for me to get back to that like cosmic place, I wanted to bring others there too. So I've been basically self-taught in most of the healing modalities. And I also got a hypnotherapy degree or certification. And so with that, I just kind of developed my own way. Everything that worked for me, I kind of took and figured out how to teach it to others. And so that's been since I was 40. So it's been a 30-year journey of uh, investigating healing, transformation, all the different modalities, and picking from them the things that worked for me and that have worked when I've shared it with others, and then combining it somehow so that it all works together. So that's essentially my background.
Excellent. So in these 30 years, it brought you to this symphony, this triumph of yours, which is the OPP program. Tell us exactly what is the OPP program.
So OPP stands for, like you said, Omega Point Program. And Omega Point is a term that was coined by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And it was funny because he was my mom's favorite author. She used to talk about him all the time. And my mom died when I was 19, so I never really got a chance as an adult to talk to her about him and why she was so fascinated by him. And it basically took me 20 years into the 30 before I even felt comfortable reading him. And I kept running into his name in a lot of the readings I was doing is like he was the first one that brought this concept forward. And so I started getting the feeling that Teilhard was like the father of the new age. He was the father of new thinking. Um, and most of his stuff came out in the 50s, I think, first. And so uh, Omega Point is what he says eventually we're all going to come together as one again. It's almost like we all separated out, from the Big Bang, whatever oneness was. And then we're all flying out here. And his point, we're all going to come together again, at least psychically. And that he calls that Omega Point. And so I use that term kind of in honor of my mom and also as an idea of we can all come together again. And so that was my inspiration for the name Omega Point Program. It's like, can I develop a pathway or at least a direction towards Omega Point, where we all come together, treat each other in a really good way and come together. So that was the origin of the name. Um, the program itself came from when COVID hit. I was doing 3 different trainings and they all got canceled when COVID hit. And so I wanted to find a way to share the technology I developed with other people during the lockdown. And so I put a bunch of ideas together about a daily mentoring program, about, a step-by-step approach. And so OPP kind of fell out of that. It was all the different things I'd been teaching broken down into small chunks and then just building over 40 days, one chunk onto another till it develops a whole, kind of like a whole evolutionary program, that just slowly builds during the 40 days. So,
Yes, because I mean that was certainly my experience. It was like a gradual start to this place where I wasn't anticipating, but
uh-huh.
it was such a healthy, well balanced place, and with a very strong foundation that really allowed me to explore a lot more and get to know myself in a very, very different way from programs that I've done before. So I find that the way that you structured it was not only insightful, but it was also empowering is the word that I would use to encompass it all.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
now I know that I got some great benefits from OPP, but what are some benefits that a person might expect in going through the program?
uh, from the feedback I've been getting, from men like you and other people, um, and the people that have done it, and I've gotten feedback from, range from all over the place, from young to old, from people new to this kind of work to people that have been doing it for 30 years. Um, and because it's set up, and maybe you notice that too, that it's basically, and I like your word empowering, because it's set up to allow space for somebody to take it wherever they want to go. And no matter what level they're at, they will take it consistent with that level. So maybe wherever they're at, they're going to just take a couple steps forward into something that's new for them without going too far. And so it's almost like, it just creates a stage and a platform for the subconscious to take over and teach you what it wants to teach you. And I mean, that's my hope, is that uh, all we're doing is connecting you with your inner resources and letting your inner resources do the teaching. Um, and so, um, with that, everybody's going to have different experiences. Um, and I would say what's common to everybody is, they do work deeper than they've done before. Uh, so that even if you've done major work for 20 years, you're going to go to whatever the next level is in your work and take it there. Uh, People talk about being more at peace with themselves, more able to love themselves, not so afraid of what's inside of them. All of a sudden, they find that what's inside of them, some of the things are scary, and we learn to deal with them in such a good way that all of a sudden they're not scary anymore, and nothing is scary anymore. It's all, you know, their inside realm becomes this loving, safe place. And so from there, they're more compassionate with themselves. And more than anything, I think they're more compassionate with other people, that they realize all the different factors that were causing them to do strange things, or, have different emotions. And so they're more open to other people having those same difficulties and can be more compassionate for it. People say they have more peace of mind. And one of the big things is they actually learn some tools to work on themselves when something's coming up, like a feeling, or they get in touch with a part that's in distress. They know what to do now, and so people are more able to self-facilitate their own solutions when they're in some emotional distress, or in some kind of, has some kind of issue come up for them.
Yeah, I personally, I absolutely love your strategy in learning how to teach a person to work with their parts, and also the rate at which you go on a daily basis, how you go to understand what your parts are. Out of all the programs that I've ever been involved with in the past 10 years that I have experience in life coaching and just going through different processes, is that this one was the one that was the smoothest. And to be honest, in the beginning, I was like, I can do more. Let's go do more. But when we got to deeper points, I really understood why it is that it's a day by day process. And I understand that we were working with our subconscious. And with parts, our parts, I've never done such healthy parts work in my experience. And going into that, could you please explain to us what parts work is, exactly what that is?
Um, yeah, so almost everybody's experienced, saying, um, when they're trying to make a decision about something, they'll say a part of me wants to do this, or a part of me, but a part of me doesn't, or a part of me just wants to take a nap, and a part of me wants to get this damn stuff done. It's like, so that's kind of our normal language. And normally we don't interpret that as actually there's a part of me or there's a part of me. It's kind of like we can take it as a colloquialism, some manner of speaking. And what we found, and what people who have done this kind of work, um, and teach it and stuff, is that we actually do have parts of us. And some people call them subpersonalities, some people call them different aspects of ourselves. And when what I found is, when I take up what I call parts perspective, when I look at everything through a parts filter, uh, it's so much easier to work with things that are coming up for me, like an emotion. Um, like, let's say I'm feeling really sad. I can be overwhelmed with that sadness to the point where I can't function, or I don't even see a way to help myself. I'm just sad. And when I say, oh, there's a part of me that's really sad right now, all of a sudden it changes the whole perspective. It's all of a sudden I can see this little 3-year-old part of me that's crying. And what I want to do now, as just a human being, I want to hug it. I want to take care of it. Rather than being overwhelmed by the sadness, all of a sudden I'm come to a loving place where I want to help a part of me. So to me, the parts perspective is one of the most powerful healing perspectives that I know of. And and that's one of the things I like about it. Once I take the perspective of something as a part, my human instincts kick in and I know what to do. And then with a couple of skills like we teach in the OPP, then I have the capability to really be with that part in a good way. So,
Yes, and and it's so much easier to describe when you're going through a negative a negative experience, right? And sit down to find out which part is it that's hurting or is affected. So then you can then deal with it. However, I know that in doing this practice through your program, I did it when I was happy. I was just so joyous and I couldn't put my finger as to why I was so happy. So I decided to do the work because I wanted to know what was it that triggered that happiness in me so that I can have it again and continue.
yeah, yeah.
And when I went into myself in a very, very elated mood, what I found is that one of my parts, I fed it something that I hadn't had in such a long time, which was, believe it or not, I'm a health food junk, and about 2 weeks ago, I just saw something from my childhood, Chef Boyardee,
Uh-huh.
something that I would not put into my body. However, and I haven't tasted this in such a long time. I cooked it, I tasted it, did not taste the way that I remembered it,
Uh-huh.
and I got rid of it. It was fine. But just having that experience of getting something for myself that my child part related to,
Yeah.
and it was like an instant trigger, that's what caused the happiness. And I was like, but what was it? And once I sat with it, it got me to a truer sense of self of my child. There are things from my childhood that I'm calling for, and it's okay if I give it to myself. So that was like a full circle. I'm like, all right, this is awesome. Just being able to understand where that level of happiness came from. So
Yeah.
that was super insightful for me. I loved it. So thank you for that. And
Yeah, what I like about that story is that instead of you being bad because you're not eating healthy, you're actually doing a good thing. You're taking care of a child that wants something comforting or fun. And so to me, it changes the whole dynamic of eating like that. And it does make it special. That's really cool. Yeah.
yes, and I'm gonna remember you said that anytime I want to get some intimates.
It's not me, it's for my kid, it's okay. So, and I think that's why they call a lot of things comfort food.
Yes.
is because it's a way to comfort those parts of ourselves that are, need some home cooking basically or something.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm gonna take and run with that. Now, Bill, so you've been quoted as saying the whole subtle realm, it's it's vast and its journey through this realm can be confusing and possibly dangerous.
Mm.
So with such potent technology that you've developed, is there any risk of harm to the individual?
Um, what I would say is, and I've used this before, is I use the analogy of a Porsche. So you can have a Porsche and it can be one of the greatest experience. I mean, it can functionally get you somewhere fast, and it can also be fun and exciting and adventurous. And you can be careless, and you can hurt people, you can hurt yourself with a Porsche. And so this is a real powerful tool. And if it's used well with respect and care, uh, there's very little risk to it. There's all kinds of caught. We have, I think our subconscious basically has certain ways of protecting us from going too far into like psychic things or subconscious things. It keeps us protected and doesn't expose us to things that we're not ready for. And that's my experience over time and with other people. And so, as long as I don't push it, abuse it, or force any of the technology on anyone else, to me, it's as safe as anything. Um, and if someone does want to abuse it or get sloppy with it, or like gets mad at their parts and says "fuck this" and it treats them badly in some way, uh, it can have negative consequences. So,
Mm,
because parts don't like that.
yeah, understood. Understood. Now, Bill, how much is it that you charge for this new technology Omega Point program?
Well, the OPP is a gift. It's a giveaway, and it's kind of patterned on the idea of pay it forward. The movie Pay It Forward, and the idea of that is um, I get I get something, and then I want to pay it forward to somebody else, or I just do something. I do something kind for somebody else, and my only request is they do something kind for the next person. And so that's pretty much the attitude we had and I had with OPP. I want to give a gift. Um, at my age, I don't need the money from the stuff I've discovered. I want to pass it on, and so I want to pass it on to people. And what I want them to do is pass it on to other people in whatever way they choose. If they want to do it with the OPP or their own, you know, um, ways that they have in their life. So I just want people to pass it on because I think the technology is a way for people to be with each other in a better way. And I'm hoping that that's kind of like my contribution to all the things that are going on in the world. I can yell about it, I can fight about it, I can protest, whatever. This is my way of hoping to make things better. So,
Beautiful. Well, we love and we're very grateful for your generosity, especially since it's taken you 30 years to create this program and come to this point. I can tell you that in doing the process, I got so much out of it for myself, but in also giving the process to someone else and gifting it over, what it did was that it had me connect with a different level of compassion because what came up for me was, of course, very different to what came up for the other person. But also, I really got to understand just how much of a gift it was when, like after session is like, thank you for yesterday. Thank you for last week. I'm still having visions of this and I'm still having these kind of breakthroughs. And just being able to facilitate that, to be the mentor to someone else was a gift within itself.
yeah,
And also, I got to be with the process again, but this time in a different way from the other side of the coin.
yeah,
And it reactivated everything within me. Like I was I still remembered what came up for me and in relation to what came up with the other person, and just having that energy flow back and forth has been beautiful and absolutely amazing. So again, kudos to you.
Yeah, no,
And
that's great to hear. So you've mentored at least one person, or how many have you mentored so far?
I'm in the process of two right now.
Two. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I've gotten the feedback quite a few times that people, as much as they enjoy being a mentee and experiencing the process, that being a mentor and then teaching it and give it to somebody else takes it to a whole nother level. And
Yes.
I hear that all the time. And um, it's interesting because it relates to a couple things. Covey, when he teaches this 7 habits, I've listened to his audio tapes and read his book. He says the best way to learn this and integrate it is to go immediately go and teach it to somebody else. And so there's something about in teaching it is when I really learn something. And I would imagine when you're experiencing it, you get the technology, but you don't really get the feel for what it looks like and how you can use it. Where, I mean, did that from mentoring, were you more familiar with then what the healing processes were? Did that help you a lot?
Yes, it really did because again, just having everything, you lay everything out really lovely. I do have to say that you don't have to have a degree or be a professional life coach in order to deliver this work because it's laid out. All you have to do is basically read, follow your intuition as well, which is plays a huge part in this program. But yeah, what I found is that it did give me a different avenue to be with my mentee. Very different from life coaching, where I'm more geared towards goal orientation and men's development, especially vulnerability. But this one it gave me a different avenue because even though everything is laid out for you, sometimes it's about what's going on with the individual because they can still be working on or working through what came up for them previously because of the work.
Mhm.
You can just bring that in and allow them the space to talk about it, to like really break it down even further and see where it's taken them and how it's affected them. And yeah, it's just it's simple. It's as simple as following the steps to building a Lego
Mhm.
castle. You start off with a house and then you end up with a castle. So it's I found it to be very easy and very connected.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm curious, especially as a life coach. So you have clients as a life coach that you meet regularly with them.
Mhm.
How is this? How is the OPP as far as building a relationship with them versus the relationship you build as a life coach?
This one goes in so much deeper because this one has a spirit. OPP has a spiritual component, and it really is about connecting with the individual on an ethereal plane
Mhm.
and truly guiding them through it. The trust that's built is through the roof, right? Because you're allowing for this person to be part of your psyche, even if it's just the voice that's guiding them. I know that my mentor Anthony, which I love him to death, I still hear his beautiful voice in my head, and it's a beautiful guiding voice. And when I hear it in my head, I know that automatically it triggers me to go to this place, right? To this state, and I can access that much more. Um, in life coaching, it's more like, okay, so we're dealing with what the realities are right now, and how is it that you're going to, what actions you're going to take to attune for that. Omega Point program is okay, so it's outside the box. It's about feelings. It's about your yesterday and tomorrow and how that can possibly show up in your present, working with your different parts.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I think that it's been a deeper level. And what I've done is one of my mentees that I'm working with now was a former client, but now we've moved on to OPP and he's like, what? Why didn't we do this before?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
it's part of the it's part of the plan. It's part of the plan.
This was my strategy all along.
Says, we have to get to this level. It's part of the plan.
Ready. That's cool. Um, yeah, it was funny for me about um, the different levels doing this, and uh, I had a man call me, and he was going through some tough times, and he was wondering if I could just do one-on-one, just do some, therapy. And I says, I really don't do one-on-one. Um, and I'm working on this OPP program, and I'd be willing to take you through it because I'm still wanting to get more experience with it. And so he signed up for that, and I took him through the 40 days, and he was fairly new at it. And at the same time, I was working with Anthony. I call him Tony, and he was taking me through it at the same time. And it was sort of a development thing of upgrading it. And so I would go through it as someone who wrote it and has been doing this for 30 years. And my client was going through it as somebody brand new to this kind of work. And so I got to see it from both ends. And our experiences inside were totally different. I mean, mine would go into some cosmic area or do real different things. And his was more real operational and made sense. And it was just this unfolding of these inner parts that were affecting his life. And so that was a fun experience for me to see how it could actually hold that range, of the two extremes. And for a guy like you who's done life coaching and everything like that, I would think this would be a different direction than what you would ever do in life coaching. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it was, I can't say it was a clear departure, but it was just an opening to more, even more. And the way that it, like I said, the way that it's structured is just, it's easy and it flows and it sets a really strong foundation. And this is the important part for me. It sets up a strong foundation so that the individual can continue to grow even after the 40 days. And they can continue to explore on their own and not feel as if they can only do it with a mentor.
Yeah.
Which is really fantastic. Which brings me to my next question is, what would you like to see happen with Omega Point program?
Um, at first, I would have answered that. I want people to use it. I wanted this kind of like pass it forward thing to start reaching a lot of people, and that was more a way of, I simply wanted people to learn these basic communication skills so they could treat each other better. And what's happened, and for some reason, it just feels like the whole thing's been guided. It's just the combination of OPP, because of the COVID situation, it was something I put together that I wouldn't have put together normally. So somehow all these things, these factors came into play, and I put together a combination for this daily program. And all of us that have been doing this work, doing these trainings, I used to do the Next Step training and the Mystic Warrior training. And there's some leaders that have helped me, and we've been together for years. All of us were stunned at how powerful it was to do it every day, a little bit, versus like doing a 3-day training. Like in a 3-day training, nobody could capture it all, take it in, integrate it. So it was kind of hit and miss. People would just get little pieces that they could retain. But like you said, after 40 days, it's like people are able to do it on their own, and somehow the stuff is integrated into them. It's like part of who they are. And so has that been possible for you to like go visit and be with your parts and use the tools like on a daily basis since you finished?
Yes, absolutely. And I started getting so used to going there that I remember for close to New Year's, I I left the country. I went to Bermuda because I just need to get out, and my uncle lives there. So even though I was in quarantine, I was in a very beautiful place quarantining, and I was doing the work, and I couldn't get there, and I was like, well, why can't I get there? And it's because I had alcohol in my system,
Uh-huh.
right?
Oh, okay.
So I
So
didn't have,
you're trying to go to your sacred, your inner world, and you couldn't get there.
I
Okay.
couldn't get there because I had alcohol in my system.
Yeah.
And which is something that's, I automatically trigger like, oh yeah, that's right. Because from the beginning of the program, you say, like it's printed out and we say it that, if you're under any type of inhibition, that you don't go there
Yeah.
because you can do damage to your parts. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out, which is I can totally understand as to why. But going there has been absolutely easy, and especially one of my favorite things is going to my space with, I don't want to give it away, but let's say that there are some very beautiful characters that are there, and just playing with these characters, and the characters that came out, some I was familiar with and others I didn't even know existed. I thought they were just figments of my imagination, and when I looked them up afterwards, they do exist. I don't know how I was able to gather that information and bring that into my subconscious. But being with those characters, it has been like playing, like kind of like going to great adventures, because the
Wow.
stuff that's happened in there is kind of like almost living like in a cartoon,
Yeah.
and it's created a space of just rejuvenation and fun. And when I have been doing serious work, I haven't had so much serious work to do as of late, which is great. Um, but it's easy to get to my individual parts, find out what's being affected, and work with that particular part. It's very direct.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's nice is when, most people, when they approach just the idea of being with a part, it's like, well, what do I do? Especially a part that's either in distress or, you know, um, a real character, almost like a cartoon character, like you're talking about. And it's one of the reasons I start out with active listening on the whole thing, is to teach people just some basic listening skills so I can be with whatever I come into. No matter what I run into, if I can do active listening, I can be with that part or energy in a good way. And so to me, that combination of access to my inner world plus some basic skills makes it more fun when I go in. And I've been getting a huge kick out of even my archetypes in different parts. They're much funnier and sassy and even risque than I ever expected. I did not expect some of that, and it's been really fun. So um, it's like personal work doesn't have to be painful and suffering all the time. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because it's true. Like it I think me myself, I was under the impression that working on these levels, it's all about pain. It's all about pain, and we have to go in, and it has to be something that's stressful and cumbersome. And I really had to let go of that belief. And I understood that I really let it go when that whole Chef Boyardee episode of me being happy, that I was able to like to really shift that belief completely, because we get to do fun work as well. We don't necessarily only need to do work on ourselves when we're going through a miserable time, right? We can also do it when things are going great, and we want to acknowledge that, right? It's all part of giving gratitude to the universe so that we can implore more of those moments into our lives.
yeah, I think one of my favorite things about how it's unfolded, for some of my mentees is that I've seen guys come in with either an addiction or some kind of major issue in their life. And because it's just this step-by-step approach, not one step is going to say quit drinking, or I got to look at my drinking, or I got to, do something. It's it's every time it comes up, it's like looking a little deeper into it, maybe talking to the part that drinks, and all of a sudden the part starts changing slowly. Sometimes there's a more significant transformation. Uh, and what I've seen is over 40 days, the addiction, it's almost like poof. It's like because the parts are transforming, maybe there's 3 or 4 parts that are part of that addiction, their behaviors, that them being together with the other parts, talking about it, and, just the whole evolution of it, all of a sudden the addiction is no longer some uh, compulsion. It's simply an option. and people can choose to have a drink or they can just let it go. And I've seen 2 or 3 people so far have a addiction fairly like almost like fade away over the 40 days. I don't know if you've had a similar experience with whatever issue you came into, with it. But that's one of the things I really like about it. It's not some dramatic, I got to face this and, face my shadow. I got to do all these things. No, I just have to be loving with my parts over time.
Yeah, and it creates a level of understanding because there could be a behavior that you yourself do not want,
Hmm.
right? But it's a behavior that's there. Understanding what part of you is empowering that behavior and then getting to the root as to why it's showing up in such a way, such as that behavior, could really help you understand what about yourself is it that you're not giving yourself, right? And I can see where I haven't dealt that with anyone who has a substance abuse. However, I can see how that can support the person understanding why that behavior that's not working for them continues to show up. And also, I think that it allows for you to face any type of shame and guilt that you have around that behavior. Because if
Hmm.
you don't understand where it's coming from, then it becomes the cycle of I'm going to do it, I'm going to feel guilty, beat myself up, so I'm going to do it again, and so on and so forth. So yeah, once again, well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So Bill, let me ask you something. Like how common do you want to see Omega Point program? Like in your in your greatest dreams, beyond reality, what is it that you would ideally love to see Omega Point program be in the world?
So, my mission before Omega Point was to co-create an enlightened culture. I wanted to be a part of creating a culture, and by enlightened, I mean where people treat each other as humans the way, you know, I don't know whether it's meant to or the way we can, what's possible. I want us to reach our um, potential of being humans that care for each other and love each other and live like that and have a culture that promotes that. Since the OPP, I changed it to I want to co-create an enlightened world culture. I really do want people to treat each other like we treat our parts in the OPP. So for me, if I can learn to be with my parts in a loving way, communicate with them in a real good way, all of a sudden I can do that with my spouse. I can do it with my grandkids. I can do it with you. I can be with people in a way that's more loving and also at some level effective. So when I'm with somebody that's crying, I can be with them in a loving way and say things that help that person move through it rather than simply be there and wonder, God, I wish I could do something. I actually have some skills where I can. And so to me, this isn't necessarily like a healing program. It's really an example of how I want our culture to be like. I want us to be like this all the time with each other. And so that's what I want. I mean, if it takes 90% of the world to experience OPP to make that transition to how we've been brought up and how we've learned to be with our inside our culture, um, I hope 90% of the world can do it. Um, there's another aspect to it that I'm discovering is, and I've talked to some Native Americans that know their tradition and everything, and I've read a couple books about how indigenous tribes actually used to teach the children, and most of that teaching is done one-on-one. They take them walk in the woods and they show them a bird and they talk about the bird and how this root is used for making tea or whatever. Everything they see, they teach them as part of the process of one-on-one kind of mentoring. And this one Native American said, that's what we did. That's how we taught. Every adult, every time they had an opportunity with a child, would take it as a teaching opportunity, you know, to teach them the ways of their culture, their people. And so I think just the way OPP is set up, I think we could use it as an example of maybe a better way of education. I mean, instead of like a classroom where a teacher's sitting in front of 30 pupils, I would love to have like an hour or two a day where a second grader teaches a first grader, what he learned as a first grader. And then the second grader spends another 2 hours with a third grader teaching teaching them what they learned. And so all of a sudden, instead of some kind of like uh, didactic, you got to do this and take a test and everything. It's building personal relationships. And the second grader, by teaching the first grader, is going to learn it at a much deeper level than he did when he was a first grader. And so that's the kind of thing I really hope OPP can actually be integrated into our educational system, in some ways. And I think that's possible. So, um, so, and I'm really, well, the other thing is, because OPP is a gateway into the inner world, in whether you call it the spirit world or just the inner parts world, I think the inner world wants to work with us. The unseen world, which our culture doesn't even recognize, essentially. When I can become, let's say, literate and skillful in the unseen world, all of a sudden I can have all these allies helping me with what I want to do in this life. And while I I haven't done a lot of that, what I have done with it has been real powerful. So I think the potential to work with the inner world, um, to make our lives better in this world, is unlimited.
Mhm.
And if OPP can be a gateway to that, then I'm really thrilled. So
Excellent. So now a person has completed OPP and they've gotten to this place of understanding themselves better. What's in store for them if they want to take it further?
so like you mentioned, the first thing is to pass it on to one or two other people. And from what I've seen so far of the initial 12 people that started this and passing it on, almost every one of them continues to pass it on to another mentee. It's like none of them want to stop. Um, so once they get done with one, then they want to pass it on to their sister, or they want to pass it on to, a high school friend, or, they want to start giving the gift
Mhm.
to somebody. And it's like, so next month I'm going to start with my ex-wife. I'm looking forward to that. And then after I work with her, I want to start with my older sister. And to me, to take those relationships deeper, and I'm real excited about. So mentoring would be the first thing. We've developed, we call the basic program phase 1 and 2. So I'm in the middle of finishing off phase 3 right now. So when you're done and you want to continue, you just go to phase 3. It'll be another 20 days. And it gets into more advanced stuff, and it builds on everything that, a person's already learned in the first 40 days. And I'm also working on phase 4 and 5. And I'm trying, my real passion in life has, once most of my healing stuff I got established and I was teaching it, and that I've gotten into more like theory of everything and the theory of the universe and how does the universe really work. And that is a lot of where my current passion is. And I've come a long way with it. And the one thing that I'm still struggling with is, how do I teach this to other people? Because it goes into areas that most people don't even think about. Uh, and so that's one of my challenges. And I want to adopt OPP to teaching more theoretical things, more cognitive things. And I'm not sure how to do that yet. So that's something I'm going to work on. But as it is, anybody who finishes it now, there's going to be 2 or 3 other phases that they can do to keep going. Um, the other thing that I'm excited about is, I know a number of people that have finished it and they wanted to continue, so they started making up their own protocols. They were just making it up every day, and some of them even joined their inner worlds together, and their parts were talking to their parts. And they found that actually when they're both inner worlds were behind a project, it became exponentially more powerful. Rather than, you just asking your parts to help you with a project, they were saying, okay, here's a project and we want both inner worlds helping us, both sets of parts and, uh, guides in the inner world. And they said the results were real powerful. So I basically see unlimited potential in working with that unseen world. And so, and I'm hoping everybody kind of takes their own journey from there and starts creating stuff. I think it can be fascinating.
That sounds amazing. Oh man. Yeah, so as soon as I'm complete with my first two, which should be is not too far off at this point, I'm looking forward in phase three and so on and so forth. Um, I'm listen, I'm absolutely just humbled to be in your presence, to have you here, to be part of your program and have it be something that's been so influential and really what was wanted and needed in my life for the past 3 or 4 months. So once again, thank you so much for that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of your work and being more involved with you. And with all of that being said, Bill, what would in 100 years from now, and people are looking up Bill Wick, what would you want people to know about you, who you are, and what you wanted to see in the world?
Um, well, there's a lot of highfalutin things I could say. The one thing that I treasure most right now is that I, as the 70-year-old, white middle class, gay man, can have a relationship, with a man, a man of color from the inner city, and different guys that like in All Kings that we've worked with, uh, and that we can learn to value each other and help each other. And so, just having this relationship with you, um, and like having done Folsom, the relationship with a lot of those guys that are out now, and now we're friends, and um, that means more to me than anything that they're going to say in 100 years. Um, so just that this is possible, that we can come to find below the surface of all the crap that we deal with, and especially, as you, a man of color, deals with out there, we can drop below that and find connection that's so powerful. And that's what I want. I want to, if I was going to be known for anything, it's helping people drop below the surface of all the crap that we hear every single day on TV and find connection and then build on that. Um, there's there's a quote that one of my favorite quotes, and it kind of inspires me all the time when I see it, is by Buckminster Fuller. And Socrates said something real similar. He says, um, don't fight the old system, create a new one that'll take its place. Is the essence of the quote, is that it never does any good to fight the old system. Build a new one. And that's what I hope with the OPP. It's my effort to build something new and let that expand and replace a lot of the stuff that's in the old system without having to confront it or fight it or demonstrate against it. Let's just quietly build a new way of being together. So if I can be known for that, planting that seed, I'd be a real happy man. So
That's excellent, brother. Bill, I want to thank you so very much for your time and for just the essence of who you are being and showing up in this world. Thank you, brother, and looking forward to even more. And now for the rest of you, actually, Bill, before we get off, I would love for people to know how to get into the OPP program. Is there a website that you can direct them to?
yeah, if you go to Omega Point Program, one word, .com, you just go to the home page and you can read it, and it'll explain what the options are for getting involved. And there's quite a few ways to get started. So it's Omega Point Program, and it's all one word, and that's it.
And that's omegapointprogram.com.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, you heard it from the man himself, omegapointprogram.com. If this is something that you would like to learn more about, I've actually been to the website and it's very, very informational. So all you have to do is basically believe, jump in, and just know that OPP is here for a better tomorrow. Bill, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rafael. This is wonderful, and love talking to you.
Likewise, likewise.